Hello, Sharif here, and I'd said earlier that if today goes well, it's going to be really good. And already I forgot to hit the go live button, so that should tell you something. Um, I I've been kind of running frantically today because um, earlier today I heard the news that Dr. A.T. Aryaratne, the founder and leader of the Sarvodaya movement in Sri Lanka, and a mentor to me and a friend to me, passed away yesterday. And not unexpected, but even when it's not unexpected, it's still, um, it's given me an awful lot of thought. It's given me an opportunity to think of kind of what am I going to do in honor of him. And what I've decided that I'm going to do is a tribute of sorts tomorrow at this time. This is going to be a special live stream. Um, and I will put the link up if I can figure out how to do that. And I will, even if I can't figure out how to do that, I will put it up after this live stream is over. I'll talk a bit about Dr. Aryaratne. I'll talk a bit about our relationship, which has been expanded over 2 decades, with a bit of turbulence at times, and we'll talk about kind of what Sarvodaya means and how we can deal with that. Okay, I am going to call up our candle, and that way we can go ahead and get started with our meditation. And this is the the rough stuff. The saying, I don't have everything in hand, and I'm looking for you could say, well, we don't need the candle, but I need everything that comes after the candle. So I'm still clicking here, and if I'd found it, I haven't recorded it yet, and I'm just going to hold on to that candle there, and I'm going to add it to our stage here. I've got my timer, and hopefully in the next 5 minutes, I can stop feeling so frazzled, and we can go into a very, I think, important discussion. And I am in stopwatch mode, and I'm going to go ahead and begin. And I'm going to ask us to hold the energy of a world for all. I'm going to ask us to hold the energy of of seeing ourselves as part of an expanded world. And how expanded, I'll talk about in a few minutes. Take a few deep breaths, let them out and let them out audibly so that you can feel the energy. Okay, if you want to open your eyes, assuming you close them, you may want to open them now. And you may want to join us, or in the case of um, for me, get here originally, be get focused here, and we'll begin. Um, so the so this notion of our future, we need to talk about that And we need to talk about it because what passes for a future for us is not a future for humanity. It's a future for those who are operating under breaker consciousness. Now, I've been saying that for a while, and you've been, um, well, a few of you have been nodding, and a few of you have been saying, this is good. A few of you have been pushing the like button that I keep telling you to push. But the majority of us are going along with the program, and I'm not in control of the program. There are people who want us to think a particular way, want us to act a particular way, and they don't have the interest of you, of humanity, of any of us at they're not holding that interest. We, the real human beings here, don't ask them, what is your view of the world? What is your view of reality? What is your view of how the world ought to work and how we need to fit into that? For those of you who think of yourselves as not necessarily scholarly, but learned, you know things. You have a notion of the sweep of world events, and you hear the terms of civilization, that we're civilized people, and because we're civilized people, we do X or Y or Z. Now, everybody wants to be civilized because the opposite of that is uncivilized, and who wants to be that? I told you about my mother who, when encouraging us, her children, to eat with a fork or a spoon, she would say, pick up that fork. Stop eating with your hands. What are you, some kind of heathen? And we had no idea what some kind of heathen was, but the tone of voice she used, we don't want to be some kind of heathen. So we used our forks. That's the tone that most of our experts, most of those who define our world for us, define the breaker world for us, use when they are talking about civilization. So one of the things that that we talk about, and this is a guy by the name of Luke Kemp. His definition of civilization is a society. Okay, let's count these off. Society with agriculture, with multiple cities, with military dominance in its geographical region, okay, and a continuous political structure. Given those definitions, and I'm having a problem with short slides again. Given that definition, he says the average lifespan of a civilization is close to 340 years. That's his definition of civilization. But let's go back up. A society with agriculture, multiple cities, military dominance in the geographical region, and a continuous political structure. What does that look like to you? Does that look like a breaker society? Is he saying that only breakers can be civilized? he most definitely is saying that. That is that is the unspoken supposition that's behind all of our conversations around what humanity ought to be doing. He believes, and there's lots and lots of people that believe like him, including some of the people on this call right now. It's a default mechanism. We think of our when we think of places with agriculture, with industrial size agriculture, with multiple cities, with a military dominance in a particular geographical region, or in terms of ours on the whole planet, the United States, and a continuous political structure, we're talking about us. We're talking about ourselves. Let's be clear about what we're not talking about. We're not talking about keeper societies. We're not talking about people who respect each other and therefore don't need a military dominance. We're not talking about people who respect the earth and know that their food comes from the earth and know how to encourage that the growth of their society without dominating the earth. We're not talking about any of the what I would call civilizations that have lasted a lot more than 340 years, that have lasted thousands and thousands of years. Well, we're not talking about them because those people are not civilized. And we know those people are not civilized because they don't act like us, okay? And so what we have to do is change the definition. But as long as you're using the definition, you can't change it. So that's why it's important for us to watch our words. If we'll say, if civilization is going to continue on this planet, I don't want that civilization to continue on this planet. I don't want it. You shouldn't want it either. We should want a world that doesn't come under military dominance. We should want a world that works for all living beings. Let's call it for what it is. If we are going to use the words of the dominant structure, we can't expect that dominance to do anything but continue the way that it is, that has been going. I want us to go a different way. And I think that it's time for us to do that. Now, let's take this, though, to its next level. Many of us, many of you, have thought about the future. Like me, you read tons of science fiction. Like me, you pay attention to astrophysicists and you pay attention to the kind of things they say. And if you're like that, you've heard of the Kardashev scale. Now, the Kardashev scale is fairly interesting. Some guy named Kardashev said that he defined what our future is, the future of civilizations. And he defined that in terms of what he believes alien civilizations will be able to do. So he's looking at this not from the point of view of just our planet. He's looking at this from the point of view of stars, galaxies, etc. So on the Kardashev scale, he calls a type 1 civilization, a planetary civilization, And if you can't read that, let me see if I can read it from my side. Um, he says a type 1 civilization is able to harness all of the planet's energy from the parent star. This type has control over the entire planet's natural forces, such as volcanoes and weather. I want us to understand what being a breaker is about. It's about control. It's about using. It's about consuming. Um, those of us who want to live in a sustainable relationship with each other, with all other living beings on this planet, and with our planet herself, we're not the ones that are being talked about by Mr. Kardashev, because he wants to use the planet up. He wants to harness, to control all of the energy from the planet. I was just listening to another astrophysicist talking about the Kardashev scale, and he basically said, the easiest way to achieve a type 1 civilization is to cover our entire planet with solar panels. Now, raise your hand now, who wants to live on a planet covered with solar panels? If any of you have your hand up, that's really, really too bad. You should send me a note and say, first of all, say I was just kidding, and second of all, what your idea of a civilization looks like. Next Thursday, I'll give you my idea of what a planetary human civilization will look like. But right now, I want to tell you what it does not look like, what I would be very disappointed if we even attempted to do that. And the person I was listening to was saying, well, we're not a type 1 civilization according to Kardashev. We're probably a type 1/2, like 0.5 civilization. And he said that's because we've only used up all the fossil fuels. We're only just exploring, using up a tiny percentage of solar, of wind, etc. What we have to do is start using more, start using up this stuff. Okay, so a type 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale, and there's a mark around here somewhere. The type 2 civilization he calls a stellar civilization. So the type 2 civilization is able to harness all of the energy of their entire star using the hypothetical concept of a Dyson sphere. If you're not familiar with the Dyson sphere, okay, the type 1 civilization has put solar panels on the entire Earth. Okay, so we're getting all of the energy from the sun that hits the Earth, and we're good to go. Go where? Who knows? The type 2 civilization wants to take those solar panels and cover our sun with them. Not just the planet facing the sun, not just the side facing, the entire, to create a giant globe around the sun and use up the sun. Okay, I think you can see where this is going. Type 3 civilization is in control of energy on the scale of their entire galaxy. That's like all the billions of stars in the galaxy. The type 3 are galactic travelers able to move from star to star, colonizing multiple star systems across the entire galaxy. We go to the star and we use it up, and we go to another star and we use it up. Now, if you think that that is fictitious, look at what breakers have done around the world inside of 140 years or so. We've put oil wells everywhere. We're sucking the earth dry of her oil. And as soon as we've sucked it dry and it's an empty husk, we'll move on to the next energy field here, and we'll keep doing that until all the energy is used up, because that is in the nature of breaker consciousness. This is why we don't want to do breaker consciousness. I I get, there's a word for it, and it starts sounding like frustration, but it's not. This is what I'm expecting. So whatever I get, let's call it dismayed. I get dismayed when I see people who are relaxed and complacent in the face of this energy. I hear people who have talked about the errors and sins of the Nazi governments, the fascist governments of the 1930s and 40s. And I hear them talking about, oh, we could go back to those days. Those days are a pittance, are just pennies on the table compared to where we're going right now. That people don't, I guess you're waiting for someone to say, you should be reacting to this stuff over here. Okay. And and unfortunately, and I guess this is where the dismay is, I guess you're expecting it to be someone other than me. I want you to understand that that consciousness, that in control of our planet, that consciousness is toxic. If it were just a culture, and yes, a few 100,000, maybe even a few million people who believe in this culture, and they kind of do their rituals and things like that, then yeah, so what? The so what comes in when we are not able to control that, I should say control, to stop that energy. So this is back in like the 50s and 60s, and I bet there's still people who are thinking this way, who are saying, well, in the face of global warming, what we need to do is cover the earth with, cover the atmosphere with aluminum. And there are people planning on shooting rockets up into space, and the rocket would cover, would be in the high atmosphere. It would basically block the sunlight from coming onto the planet, and therefore we won't get global warming. Now, this is not a stupid idea. This is an insane idea. Okay. Now, the problem is the people who believe that, who want to do that, have control over rockets, have control over budgets, have control over political systems. And because of that, 99% of us on the planet, of human beings on the planet, would be against it, but they're the ones in control of the rockets. Something, and I'm going to make a note to do this next week. Something that I saw a few years ago, and this was 3,000 Palestinians and Israelis who had joined together to sing a song, and a song that none of them knew. It's interesting that the crowd came together and they passed out the music to everybody, and they wound up singing this song, and it's on YouTube, and I hope to show it next week. They sang this song in English and in Hebrew and in Arabic, and they all sounded good together, and they all looked very peaceful, very upbeat, very happy. There's a very young crowd. And those people are in Israel, Palestine right now, hunkered over, in air raid shelters, or hunkered in the middle of the street if they're on the Gaza side, and wondering what's going to happen next, knowing that they don't want what's happening. It's kind of like you're doing this, but it's not in my name. The question isn't how do we get the leadership, the breaker leadership at the top, the breaker leadership in Israel, and the breaker leadership in Hamas, and the breaker leadership in Palestine, and the breaker leadership in the United States to step out of the way to let us figure out, us regular human beings figure out how to resolve this situation. As you know, I worked when I was working in Sri Lanka. We said that when I was doing the peace work in Sri Lanka, someone asked, how long is it going to take to end the war, to stop the shooting war? I thought for a minute and I said 2 to 5 years. And everybody thought I was crazy. They said that you can't do it in that short a period of time. It's going to take another decade to stop the shooting. Oh, we stopped the shooting in 18 months. It's not hard as long as you change your consciousness. If you don't change the consciousness, it's not hard, it's impossible. So the question is, for every issue that we've got, what is the consciousness that is trying to work on this issue? What is the consciousness that's trying to solve the issue? What is the consciousness that believes that this issue has to continue? What is the consciousness that says, I benefit from the existence of this conflict? Okay. Now, for many of us, for me and many of us, the notion of war to solve a conflict is unthinkable. Okay. That's like using gallons and gallons of gasoline to stop a fire. It's like, which part of that won't happen don't you understand? So our challenge is, what is it that we need to do? Where is that jugular vein that I talked about last time? Where is the place where you put the pressure in order for you to make the kinds of changes that we need to make. One more story, and then I'm going to call it a day. And then, remember, we'll meet again tomorrow to talk about the passing of Dr. A.T. Aryaratne and the what's happening with Sarvodaya. So this is something that we all know the history of it, but I'm not sure we know this history of it. We know that in the Montgomery bus boycott, when they were doing the Sunday marches, that the Martin Luther King and the other marchers, dressed in their Sunday best, marching down the street, and Bull Connor, the person who was supposed to be keeping the peace, was destroying the peace. They had the firemen lined up, and he told them to turn the hoses on, and he turned the hoses on, and these hoses would blast the people down the street. And King would come back the next Sunday with the marchers and get to the same point. And Connor would tell him to turn on the hoses, and he'd blast them down the street. Third time, fourth time, fifth time, the sixth time, and Bull Connor wasn't even tired. He told the firemen to turn on the hoses and wash them down the street. And the firemen refused. They couldn't take it anymore. They knew that they were doing wrong. And they just said, we can't do it. And the marchers continued on the march. King and the other marchers were not doing this to change the consciousness of Bull Connor. His consciousness never changed. They were focused in a different direction. They were focused on the firemen, and they were appealing to the humanness of these human beings who are asked to do the wrong thing. And it worked. When when the Berlin Wall was coming down, some newspaper reporters asked Erich Honecker, the head of East Berlin, East Germany, how long did he think that the Berlin Wall was going to last? And he was confident. He said the Berlin Wall will last another 100 years. At the time he made that statement, it didn't last another 100 hours. When the demonstrators from the West reached the top of the wall and were going to come over, Erich Honecker gave his troops the order to fire on them, to kill them. And his troops refused. The demonstration wasn't to change Erich Honecker. He never changed. He thought he was right in killing people who just wanted to be free. The people who were being worked on, the people's consciousness that were being worked on, were the people holding the guns. Fast forward to the work that we were doing in Sri Lanka. I knew, Dr. Aryaratne knew, that the consciousness of the leaders on both sides were not going to change. If their consciousness is not going to change, don't bother trying to change it. You change the consciousness of the people who are actually carrying out the war, the people whose lives were at risk for little or nothing. You work on them. We right now, okay, that was a few decades ago. So right now we have a very different struggle. And this is the struggle for the center of our humanity. It's not just about, and it definitely is about stopping the war in the Ukraine, but it's not just about the Ukraine. It is about stopping the internal war of Israel-Palestine. But it's not just about stopping that war. It is about the war on nature that we are carrying out with every load of pesticides that we put in our atmosphere. But it's not just about our ecology. It's literally about what we are all doing here on this planet. It's literally the notion of how do we make this world work? How do we make this world work for all living beings? It can't happen unless we engage in a conversation for that to happen. We will be engaging in that conversation, the positive end of the conversation, not I don't want this and I don't want Ukraine, I don't want Gaza, I don't want, it's like, okay, fine. What do you want? What are we willing to fight for? What are we willing to sacrifice for? Actually, most important thing, what am I willing to change my consciousness for? I would hope that we see that as being a world that works for all living beings. So let's wrap up with our inclusivity mantra. Remember, we focus first on ourselves, then we focus on you, on whoever your other is. Then we focus on all of us who are trying to change this world. We want a whole lot more than the world. I want the world to be a better place. I want the world to work for all living beings. And then we focus on all of those living beings. So if you want to say this with me, that would be great. May I be well. May I be secure. May I be happy. May you be well. May you be secure. May you be happy. May we be well. May we be secure. May we be happy. And may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. I will see some of you who were interested in Sri Lanka and the passing of Dr. Ariyaratne. I'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And we'll continue this conversation on what the next 1,000 years looks like. What does a mature human civilization actually look like? I see that a bunch of comments just came in into the box. I haven't read them yet, but I will read and comment on them on Thursday. I look forward to talking with you, and I will see you at another point.